Welcome back, 9:49 now. Tomorrow, Rishi Sunak's new smoking ban will face its first Commons test, with several ministers undecided on whether to back the legislation.
So the tobacco and vape bill means anyone turning 15 this year or younger will never legally be sold cigarettes.
The government says that smoking itself will not be criminalised, so anyone who can legally buy tobacco now will not be prevented from doing so in the future.
So Boris Johnson, speaking ahead of the bill last month, Sunak said this.
He said, if we want to build a better future for our children, we need to tackle the single biggest entirely preventable cause of ill health, disability and death, smoking. But
Boris Johnson stuck his oar in it last week when he said, what would Winston Churchill make of the fact that the Prime Minister's effectively trying to ban people smoking cigars? Nobody better to answer this question than our very own Churchill historian, Rafe Heydel-Mankoo, who we often talk to about royal issues. You were a member of the Churchill Society of Many... Oh,
former board member, so yes, I'm very enthusiastic about Churchill and cigars, two of my great passions. So I'm very pleased to be able to have this chat with you today. The first thing we should say is, because we've also had a government minister, Victoria Atkins, coming out to say Churchill would be in support of this ban.
How does she know?
Any Churchill historian would say, you know, you're extremely foolish to say what Churchill would or would not do in 2023. It is. No, 2024.
Yeah.
Right? The man died in 1965. It's a very different world today to what it was then. And certainly, I think, you know, but looking at the balance of evidence as a champion of liberty and somebody who was definitely opposed to state interference, I think he probably would be against this smoking ban, I have to say. It should be said, actually, you know, he didn't smoke as much as people like to think. Towards the end of her life, I got to know Churchill's daughter very well, Mary Soames, Lady Soames, and went to a few cigar dinners with her as well. And she said that, you know, he always had a cigar in his hand, but he very rarely actually smoked it. It was more of a prop.
Was it like a comfort thing?
It was a comfort thing, but also it was part of his status symbol. Everyone expected to see him with that. So there was always a cigar lit, but they were always going out on the ashtray. And that's why there were always Churchill cigars coming up for auction.
And it made him look relaxed, didn't it?
You think about it, when he was with Roosevelt and Stalin at those big the conferences dividing up after the war, he always had the cigar, didn't he?
Roosevelt had his cigarette holder, and Churchill had his cigar.
Well,
and of course, the fact that there are so many Churchill cigars coming up for auction proves he didn't actually smoke them, because they wouldn't be existing.
Could you still smoke them 70 years on, 50 years on?
Oh, no, but they're sold as iconic.
As an iconic, yes.
And are cigars included in this change of legislation?
Well, this is my camp, because I actually support this bill on principle, as long as it just applies to cigarettes and vapes. And the problem here is people have to realise nobody who smokes today a cigarette will ever be stopped from smoking by this bill. That's the first thing to know. This just stops children, people under the age of 15, from ever starting to smoke.
Well, or legally buying.
Or legally buying. And I don't think there's a single mother or father in the country who would be happy if their child started to smoke. And we know that the majority of cigarette smokers in this country want to quit, and they wish that they had never started.
Support the aim of the bill.
So I support it, as long as it doesn't apply to premium products like cigars, because you don't smoke 40 a day of cigars, right? That's an hour-long smoke, enjoyed once in a while.
Teenagers
you don't inhale it, it's in your mouth.
Teenagers can't afford a cigar.
Yeah, that's 50 quid, right? So you
Is it really?
Yeah, so, I mean, the price, it was £40 last year, it's £50 this year, that's how much.
And how long will that last?
That's about 45 minutes to an hour, depending on whether you're having a good conversation or if you're on your own, obviously.
And how many of those a day would you smoke?
Oh, I have 2 a week, basically.
2 a week?
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. It's a very different thing, and you can do it with friends over a drink rather than just having a smoke behind the bike sheds. It's a very different sort of experience.
But what does it tell us about Rishi Sunak's government, though, the fact that they are clamping down on this? Because actually one of the biggest public health triumphs in the last couple of decades has been getting rid of smoking, actually. So few people smoke now compared to 20 years ago. Is it maybe just a bit simple, this kind of a bit too authoritarian?
Well, we've seen the shocking rise in the number of children who are consuming vapes. So there's no reason to actually think that vapes might not actually be a gateway drug to cigarettes.
And cannabis.
You know, complete reversal of what the intention was behind vapes in the first place. I think this is necessary. As I said, nobody today who's a smoker is going to be affected by this at all. We know that it's the single most preventable cause of illness in this country. My own mother died of lung cancer 2 years ago. So I know, and you know, the cost on the NHS as well is huge. So I think if you weigh things together, I think it's quite a sensible piece of legislation.
And I think we do have to also point out the fact that your cigar is not necessarily good for your health.
No, right? You can get... Well, you don't inhale a cigar, but you get the more chance of getting mouth cancer than lung cancer.
That's right. OK.
Not advisable, although they do suppress your appetite, so I say I smoke for my health because I eat less as a result.
Very good.
Is that right?
Every cloud.